Okay, this is part two. Nah, not part two. Had Marcus leave me a question, so this is going to fall under hospital security, but it could apply to other security. But I guess let's keep it hospital security since that's what he was asking. And he says, "Do you know the best way to deal with conflict when a person is breaking the rules and refusing to leave the property?" So let me tell you that in the beginning, I started off sort of the wrong foot. I didn't get into trouble, and I didn't really do the wrong thing. But in 1972, it wasn't just me; it was everybody working hospital security, and we all sort of adopted sort of the police way of thinking, and it was, ask somebody, tell them, make them. That's totally wrong way to, totally wrong way to do it. Got to realize if you're working, you know, if you're a police officer, if you have to end up arresting somebody, and if they resist you, and if you throw them on the ground and they're screaming and hollering, and you have to handcuff them and drag them out of there, and if the people around are all, looking and whatever, you're okay. You're a police officer. You enforced the laws. You arrested somebody. Uh, you took them out. Took them out of the facility or whatever. That's sort of it. You sort of did your job. If you're working hospital security or any other type but you're working hospital security, the hospital does not want a disturbance. The hospital doesn't want yelling and screaming. They don't want somebody being, you know, thrown to the ground, wrestled with, and handcuffed, and walked, drug out through the hospital. The hospital wants, and sometimes that has to happen. I remember on the sixth floor of the hospital, right outside the security office, a anesthesiologist was telling a family member right by the elevator about his father was going to have surgery tomorrow, and that and the family member, a son, really grown son, 40s or whatever, went crazy, ballistic, didn't want his father to have surgery or something, and started screaming and hollering at the top of his lungs. And I responded, and a couple other security officers responded out there. We couldn't get the guy calmed down. I mean, he just wouldn't. He was on the elevator and screaming and hollering, and we had to physically, restrain him and put him on the floor of the elevator, and his feet keep kicking the light thing, so the elevator door won't close, so we can't get the elevator to go downstairs. Now we're on the sixth floor. The administrative wing of the hospital was on the first floor. But anyway, we were on the elevator, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs and fighting and resisting, and that sound could be heard throughout the hospital. The administrators of the hospital picked up the phone and called the director of security, his office was on the sixth floor around the corner. They called him. What in the hell's going on? We hear screaming. What's going on? And people were, all over the hospital, people were being alarmed and disturbed by it. Not only that, the police were called by somebody, and Trinity Lutheran Hospital, the police responded, a couple of units or whatever, maybe more than two. One of the units arrived, I don't know whether it was a third floor entrance or the first floor entrance, which one it was first one. And when they arrived, they did, 1023, they arrived they're at the location or whatever. Well, then the other officers arrive at the other floor, third floor or first floor, whichever it was. They know the other officers are 10:23 have arrived at the location, and they hear this screaming and hollering going on. And they think their officers aren't even involved in it, They think their officers are involved in a knockdown, drag-out fight or whatever. And so they, call on the radio, officers need assistance, officers need assistance. And then the Kansas City dispatcher, beep, 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 officers need assistance, Trinity Lutheran, cars from all over Kansas City are converging, and we're still harassing this guy. Then we get the elevator closed and we get him downstairs and handle the situation. But the police were not happy either. Even the police weren't happy because of all the confusion. You don't want to have those type of situations, Don't want to have those type of situations. Sometimes they happen. So, you have to understand that people at the hospital, they're under stress. No telling what's going on. Somebody may be dying. Maybe a child involved. Maybe a woman's pregnant and the husband is not the father and the boyfriend shows up. You just don't know what's going on, in the world. You need to know your facility. You need to go out and make your rounds. If you're sitting in the security officer eating donuts and not making your rounds, that's going to make the situation worse. You need to go out and make your, if you're making your rounds, you go through the hospital and you go, through the hospital, and you go by a waiting room and there's a guy in there who's pacing in the waiting room. He's, whatever he's doing, and you read the body language, whatever, go in and, hi, how's everything going? Goddamn fucking doctor. I've been here all day long and the doctor didn't show up to see my father. My father hadn't seen the doctor in 2 or 3 days, or it may be. I'm so fucking mad. If I go back to that room and my father doesn't have water, every time I come here, the nurse doesn't have water. His water pitcher, if that happens again, I'm going to fucking beat the crap out of that nurse, So, so you can deal with that situation, the doctor hasn't seen your father in 2 or 3 days. Who's your doctor? Dr. Skinner. Well, Dr. Skinner I've seen him here. Are you sure he hasn't? Well, just a second. Let me, you call the operator and say, is Dr. Skinner in the hospital? Or, well, yeah, he's in the hospital. Or, whatever you do, you handle the situation. You get the whole, get the thing, and then the guy doesn't go. If you sit in your security office, eating, or you're down hanging over the desk talking to the pretty, admitting clerk or something rather, then the guy goes ballistic and you have a situation. So I'm sorry if you hear that clicking. I'm clicking my space pen. Nervous habit, I guess. So you have to understand people are under stress. And you have to try to deal with the situation. You're not successful as a security officer if by the number of arrests you make. The police officer, if he arrests X number of people, hey, if he gives tickets, X number of tickets, if he arrests DWI, that you're not going to be judged a success if you arrest a whole bunch of people. You'll be really successful if there aren't disturbances, if everything goes really smooth, and if you handle situations without having to, to resort to stringent, harsh measures. You may have to. When I started out in security, well, the first hospital, Catholic hospital, and not just that hospital, but all hospitals, visiting hours were over at 9 o'clock at night. Everybody had to leave, no exceptions. Security went to every room and made everybody leave. I'm not saying no exceptions. Somebody's dying, a woman is having a baby, but there are very few exceptions. Maybe in a hospital, 300 beds, maybe there'd be 4 or 5 people that had permission to stay, and the rest left. things changed later. Hospitals became more concerned with PR, more concerned with making money and all this type of stuff. But in the beginning, so every night I had to go to every room, go in, so, I'm sorry, visiting hours are over now. And, some of the, most everybody, oh, okay, and they would leave. There'd be maybe 3 or 4 when I make my rounds from room to room. Take me a while to do it, There'd be somebody who'd say, fuck, I'm not leaving. You're not making me leave. I'm staying. And I could have just said, okay, which depends. It handles the situation depending on, there's not one way you do it. But, I could have said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave right now. And the person would have, maybe they're showing off for somebody, the person would have said, hell no, I'm not leaving. You can't make me, whatever. A lot of the times, again, not everything, sometimes, well, sir, you do need to leave. I'm going to check the rest of these rooms. I'll be back in a few minutes, and you're going to have to leave. And then I'd go check the, and come back. 3 out of 4 times, the person went ahead and left. So that took care of a bunch of problems. Maybe the patient, family member would have said, hey Joe, go ahead and leave, please. So most of it. So I go back, and then go back, and the person's still there, and the person says, fuck you, you goddamn rent-a-cop. I wasn't a rent-a-cop actually, but and then usually in 3/4 of those cases, the person gets up and cusses me out, says they're gonna fucking kill me or whatever. I don't even say that, but well, but the person leaves, and I walk with them as they leave, as they exit, walk them out or whatever, and they're cussing me as they go. And then you have that other small number, maybe 1 a week or whatever, where the person says, I'm not going. Sir, if you don't leave, I'm going to have you arrested for trespassing. And then you can, you don't want that. It's, you're here to see a family member. You don't want that to happen. And if you get arrested, you're going to have to post bail. You're going to have to go to court. If your car's out there in the parking lot, it's going to get towed. Just come on, and I'll walk you on out. And a bunch of times they'll go. Sometimes they don't. You're under arrest. Call the police. We call the police. Police come and take them away. So, how do you deal with the conflict when a person is breaking the rules and refusing to leave the hospital? Not sure I covered it. I did my best. Let me just say, some of the guys I worked with, if somebody, it's like, I got a gun, I got a badge, I'm in charge. You have to respect me. You have to listen to me. That's, that's not, it's not a personal, it's not a personal thing. It's not my self-worth, my ego, my standing, or whatever, that doesn't enter into it. The only thing is to resolve the situation. If the other person wants to call me some names, even disrespect me, as long as they don't spit on me. I've been spit on and punched and bit, everything, but it's not, I just want to go home at the end of the day safely to my family, and want everything as peaceful and as quiet as we can, as we can do it. Sometimes you can't do it that way. One thing you have to remember too, breaking the rules. Now, we're leaving the hospital, that's pretty easy, trespassing. Breaking the rules, you've got to, Do you want to send somebody to jail for, you know, smoking in the parking lot? You know, the hospital has a rule, you know, maybe no smoking in the parking lot. Are you going to arrest somebody that's going outside smoking, you know, in the parking? And so you got to, you know, there are laws, there are hospital rules and regulations. There's also safety regulations that are, you know, really important for hospitals. You know, you have rules that are pretty important, but refusing to leave the hospital, you know, or creating a disturbance or stealing and that type of stuff. So hopefully I've covered this. If not, ask me again and I'll try to do better.